3 books and 3 movies.
Can I combine them? I'll give you some movies and some books.
Sure. Let's start with the books.
Books. I'm reading, I think, Jordan Peterson, anything he writes. One.
What is it that stands out, especially with what you're reading? Which one are you reading right now?
12 Rules for Life. I also have Beyond. That's the second book.
What's the one idea that's really hitting home
I think
for
just
you?
the way he articulates things that we think are normal in life, but not everybody knows or says is normal. If, as people say, if there is a normal. But I think because of how relative things are, we don't realize how there's certain things that we're taught in life. You see, for example, like compassion, kindness, even things like order. We think we don't need rules, but it's like banks of a river. Chaos results when we're left to our own devices and we make everything so relative that even finding definition is hard.
Song number 13. Chaos.
Also, I say many things that I don't
Yeah, you
remember.
said
So
many
there you
things,
go.
chaos.
You're gonna have to find it.
Yes.
But yeah,
Chaos would be a good song.
that would be interesting. But yeah, so yeah, I think he's a great writer, and he thinks through things so that when he says them, he doesn't regret saying them. And I think that's something everyone should do.
Yes.
Because of the impact of not only our words, our thoughts, even on people, and how we share them. So I think he's great. So most of his books I'm reading, I have both books, but I think 12 Rules for Life is great because it's not necessarily self-help. It's taking things that we know that even occur in nature that we think about very far off, but he concretely just helps us think about and articulate things we know. A movie is Inception. I think it's great because I love puzzles. And I'm a superhero fan, so I liked the Spider-Man movie.
What did you like about Inception? Okay, you said puzzles.
I'm a fan of cross-generational things, so I don't think we can go forward without looking at the past, and I don't think we can embrace the present without dreaming of the future and knowing the past. So I like how they tied in 3 different generations of Spider-Man that we know, and the stories, they're stories of loss, they're stories of triumph, they're stories of internal struggle as well, and how they each have it in their own way. And how maybe your hero, again, your average neighborhood Spider-Man is someone and them acting on. I keep telling sometimes my friends, like, if we all did what we know to be right, I guess, and if we all did our jobs or our roles, I think a lot of things would function a lot better than we think. So yeah, I also like Inception for puzzles because sometimes I think what we embrace, might actually be a lot simpler than we think, not because we're wrestling with it to make sure it's true, but just something that, like kindness costs you nothing. It might be expensive, and that incurs sacrifice, which is choice demands consequence and sacrifice, and we have different equations for things. So yeah, kindness costs us nothing. We just think it's expensive because it's how much are you willing to sacrifice necessarily. And sometimes, and again, it's not necessarily to do with the other person, but it's more, what can you give that doesn't cost you anything, your time. But even though we can argue that, yes, time costs a lot if you spend it in the wrong way. So you see, so.
And when you said that, what came to mind is, that movie again, Spider-Man and, the villains. Yeah. And what stood out for me is I realized the hero has help processing the emotions and what's going on in their mind, while the villains do not have, let me not say they don't have the opportunity to process, but it seems there's no support. Yeah. So again, just the way you're reiterating the sense of community and support.
They both, and if you think about it, both Spider-Man had community in all of the movies. But they forfeit community. What they think it will empower community, they end up forfeiting because it now becomes selfish. It's a selfish pursuit of, let's say, making the most superhuman thing, but you end up doing it yourself, and then you absolutely abhor it, or you think they are worthless, or you think that the only way they can exist is being a lizard, which is a bit rough.
Yes. So, a couple of more books and any other movie you want to slip in there?
Movie Up.
Up.
Up. Yes.
The cartoon, yeah, the animation.
Yes. I like Up
Yes.
and Wally. And Wally. Yeah, I think they're great. Up is because you see someone who's so riddled in their pain finding joy. And I think that's something everyone should do. It's like even though there's another movie where you see the girl's emotions in her brain, joy, sadness.
Inside Out.
Yes,
Oh
Inside
my,
Out.
one of my favorites. Oh my
Absolutely.
God.
Even Wally. Wally is, we see a machine with a heart, which is kind of like how we are. You enter a capitalistic world, you're like, get the money, but then everyone who has the money is telling you it doesn't really matter until you're alone and you have either no one to share it with or people who absolutely do not value you because you have all the money and you give them all the access to it in the world, or you do something great and people are just like, okay, we don't care. We just want access to you because of those things, not because of who you are. Which again goes back to the thing for connection. We seek it on so many different platforms, but rather than just being like, hi, are you okay? How was your day? So don't be like, I need to sign this, I need to see blah blah, I need to get skip this. I have no idea what my boss might be going through, and I don't necessarily need to exclusively know, but if I offer some vulnerability, you might find in most cases people might offer it back even when they're terrified.
Wow. Any other books apart from
From
Jordan Peterson, our fellow lecturer, Professor Lisa, Dr. Peterson?
Personally for me also, maybe it's just because of my belief system, but I think the Bible is great. I think because of not just how much peace it has offered me. There's so many people, I think, remove the practicality of it in many ways. Just because, for instance, there's a verse that talks about be transformed in your mind, in the renewal of your mind. And the idea of transformation sometimes is linked to forget everything, do this, and you've transformed, yeah. It's about like reworking your brain. Dr. Caroline Leaf talks about your thoughts are like trees that are alive and trees that are dead. The bad ones are like trees that are dead or dying off, And the transformation of your mind is, this is a dead tree. How did I arrive at a dead tree? Do this thing. I felt this thing. What triggered you feeling this thing? And you see, you do not conform anymore to feeding. You can't feed dead trees, but building or planting dead trees, or planting seeds in ground that won't sire living trees, You plant new trees. You think about, like, for instance, I had a traumatic experience with my mom. Okay, but I ended up doing music. Okay, what does music do for me? It brings catharsis. Okay, what happens when I feel that thing? Relief. I feel peace. How many different ways can I have a peace in my life? Now I'm going to the life. Okay, when I journal, when I sing, when I spend time with people. Okay, how many ways can I incorporate that into my life? And how many, on this day I'm feeling this particular anxiety, can I call someone? You see how it has gone from, there was this part that felt dead, where connection was harmed in the trauma of my life, but how I've re-articulated connection again. Yeah. So.
Wow. Yeah. Any last book you want to recommend that comes to mind? Or?
There's a book I want to read, which I've had good things about, The 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. So that's one I want to read. Because we're talking about it with my brother, whom I love so dearly. It was, I need to quote it, that one law which is inciting my reading of this thing. This is on behalf of Kevin Oduor, who I love so much, my big brother.
Thank you, big brother Kevin, for being such an inspiration to your small sister.
Yeah, the kindest, mean mug looking brother in the world. He's the tenderest. Don't say I told you guys that about him.
Okay.
But it says the 48 law says, law number 19 says, know who you're dealing with, or i.e. do not offend the wrong person. And I was like, in your dealings with people, always be kind. You never know what someone else might, I guess, do in your life. You have no idea and you can't plan. That's one of the most interesting things about life. I cannot plan. I never knew that there'd be a podcast one day that you'd be you would be heading, and when I grew up with you years ago, and in fact, you grew up more with my siblings, so who would have thought this is the path that life would take? I cannot plan. But if I was a sucky person before, this would be terribly awkward, And even then, taking the chance on doing the podcast with me would have been like, hey, or if you had that, maybe I'm nice, but then I suck to you, And it would be different if I was sucky because I had a bad day and I told you that. See?
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, you can't plan. Do not offend the wrong person. So that's why I want to read it. I think that's brilliant.